Hi, my name is Roy Collin, and welcome to the show. I've also got five podcasts: the Awakening Podcast, exposing fraud and corruption, but with solutions; the Crypto Podcast, on about all things blockchain, NFTs, crypto; the Meditation Podcast, talking about all different types of meditation, but there's also meditations there from 1 minute to 2 hours. And the other one's the Learn Polish podcast. So if you're interested in learning Polish, you can do that. And the other one is Speaking with Roy Collin. And I just have guests from around the world talking about either public speaking or also about their book or just general life in general. And you'll find everything on bio.link/podcaster. I'm also a podcasting coach. And you see the QR code there, and it's also on my link as well. And if you're interested in actually going on some podcast shows, I'm helping people doing that. Or if you're interested in sponsorship, you can contact me. And I'd like to thank my sponsor, DanielPacker.com. He helps people with anxiety, stress, and addictions. He's got a 90% success rate, and you only pay if you're successful. So be sure to check him out, DanielPacker.com. I hope you enjoy this week's show. Welcome to the Crypto Podcast. You'll find all our episodes on thecryptopodcast.org. My guest today, co-founder and CEO of Honeyland, a mobile, iOS, Android, Web3 game from California, USA. Please welcome Corey Wright.
Really good to be here.
Yeah, no, looking forward to this because, I mean, obviously the gaming and everything, but you're also like an entrepreneur. Like you've had a few businesses like 6+. So I suppose the best thing is I just kind of gave a brief synopsis, but you might let the listeners know who's Corey.
Yeah, so I'm far more of an entrepreneur than a gamer, I would say. I happen to be in an entrepreneurial role of running a gaming company now, but I'm a serial entrepreneur for the last 20 years. I've been starting and running businesses, always had just a love and a passion for organizing and kind of ideas and then moving those forward into action, building teams around that. And so my early career, I launched a marketing agency about 20 years ago, did this in like the residential real estate industry for residential real estate agents. My parents were realtors, so we had helped them out kind of with some of their social media early days. Like we're talking like before, like when people were excited about receiving emails, like back in those times, right? Like when it was interesting to get an email, not felt like it was spam. And so we were kind of really early on the content marketing and email marketing, moved that into social media, started to do that for a number of real estate agents. We're able to kind of productize that service. Eventually launched a secondary product, which was a SaaS business where we generated leads for real estate brokers who were looking to hire real estate agents. And so, and this is when I say we, myself and my brother had done these. And so launched that business, which was kind of a parallel business under the same umbrella. We were running both of those at the exact same time. So we were helping brokerages find real estate agents at the same time that we were helping real estate agents market themselves in more meaningful ways. We went on to start a licensing business after that as well. So we helped real estate agents get licensed as well. So we kind of had this whole umbrella and hood, and we had gotten this business very, very successful. It was printing money. It was not requiring a ton of our time. It was kind of every entrepreneur's dream. But we had to kind of scratch that itch and of kind of what's next. And so we launched an e-commerce business. And this is not intended to be, in fact, there was no political affiliation with this, but it was back in 2016. E-commerce was becoming kind of popular. And in fact, one of my co-founders today, Justin, had taken an e-commerce course. And through the course of that, was forced to launch an e-commerce product. And he'd launched these neon sneakers. They were really cool. And I was like, I want to launch an e-commerce store. Like I want to see what I can learn about that. And so myself and my brother put our heads together and we're like, let's sell some Donald Trump bobbleheads. And so we had reached out to a manufacturer in China, found a way that we could start kind of doing this. We ordered 1,000 of them, and we thought that we would just kind of like see what we could learn trying to sell 1,000 bobbleheads, try not to lose too much money. And all of a sudden it took off, and we started selling thousands of these things. We eventually sold close to 100,000 Donald Trump bobbleheads. It led to an entire e-commerce store that was doing many, many millions of dollars immediately. In fact, I think we did close to 4 million USD in revenues in the first 6 months of business. We launched in like May. And so we had like the first 6 months, tons of headaches and pains, but through that, ended up launching an e-commerce business. And so I had all of these businesses that we were running under one hood. Eventually, I wanted to kind of see what was next. I wanted to get more into like coaching and working with a number of businesses where I wasn't operating so heavily, but I was still involved in kind of the direction, organization, communication, alignment, all of those things that really help businesses thrive. And so I exited my business, sold it to my brother. He continues to run them successfully to this day and does a great job with them. And I moved into coaching. I did business coaching for about 3 years. And it was a lot of fun. It was a little bit of a break from just the stress of operating businesses, but I got to really be influential in kind of the success of working with leadership teams of businesses doing, 5 million, trying to get to 50 million. And so it was a lot of fun being a part of that process. And then I kind of got the itch again to go back into operating. And Justin had reached out to me, one of my co-founders now, and said, hey, listen, we've got an idea for a Web3 game. We've got a really talented studio. We're looking to kind of fill out the, kind of Ocean's 11 style, fill out the leadership team of founders and what that could look like. It piqued my interest. And so we started having some calls, and it was almost immediate. And so it was November 15th of 2021 was the very first call that we had as a team. And it was 5 days later that we had a registered business, a deck. We were already talking to investors, advisors, all of that stuff to really drive this thing forward. So it's been 2 years since then. And we've been building Honeyland, which is as you mentioned, a Web3 mobile game. And we have this goal and vision of really doing Web3 gaming right, building a blueprint that we and other projects can follow to build sustainable economies, make them really, really fun, seamless onboarding. We'll get into, I'm sure, a lot of that stuff, but that's who Corey is in a nutshell.
No, very, very impressive. And I mean, you had the Trump bobblehead. You didn't think of doing a Biden bobble legs, no, since he's falling all the time, no?
We did. Well, actually, that would work. What we realized, we tried to sell Hillary bobbleheads at the same time. What we realized was that that Democrats didn't want to spend money on like products. They wanted to spend more towards causes. Republicans or conservatives wanted to spend money on products. They were great gifts. We ended up building a whole store out. We did do a Hillary bobblehead, but it was one with her in prison stripes. And it was kind of as a companion to the Donald Trump bobblehead. Again, no political affiliation. I was not trying to drive or push a message. All I was doing was running an e-commerce store. And so that's kind of where my interest in that product ended, was the ability to build a really fun business. And one of the things that drives me and always has in business is putting smiles on faces. And so that's why, I've done everything from, marketing agencies to SaaS to e-commerce and now, gaming. And really the goal is, whether it's, in the SaaS business, just putting a smile on a broker's face who's really having a challenge of recruiting agents. And I've now taken them from like the bottom of the county to the top of the county in terms of recruiting, because of this tool that they're able to have. And it just makes their life easier, puts their smile on their face. Or whether it's gaming, where it's a lot more tangible, the type of smile and happiness that you can bring. That's really what's always driven me. And so I saw these kind of what I would call novelty products as a really, really fun way to put a lot of smiles on a lot of faces. And I think we did a good job doing that.
And with, like, you've done a lot with your brother. I'm just curious, how did you make that work? Because obviously not in the boardroom, it's not always, smiley faces. There's times there are big clashes. How did you prevent that from going back to the house?
Yeah, so we worked really well together. And the very last like month or two, we had some small differences, not in personality or values, just direction of like where we really felt the largest opportunities were for the business. And that's ultimately where we said, hey, listen, this thing's so easy. It probably doesn't need either one of us. It certainly doesn't need both of us. Let's just put one of us at the helm. Let's find a really cool way to do a buyout. But what I would say is, and I've done this a number of times in working with founders and leadership teams and being a multiple time founder. I think there's 3 things that you really need to look for when finding a co-founder with a business. Number one, you have to have the same values. You have to be culturally aligned, because there's going to be times where if one person's value is integrity at all cost and one person's value is, creating the best life for their family, which both are going to be, very admirable values. Sometimes they'll come in conflict when there's something that you can do that's a little bit in the gray area that's going to make more money and allow you to provide for your family, but it may not be the highest of integrity. Those things are going to come into conflict at some point, right? And so I think it's incredibly important to have aligned values. I think that you need to be equally and oppositely talented. I think too often we bring co-founders in who either are at completely different levels of value that they bring to the organization, or they overlap in value. They're both really good marketers. They're both really good operators. And what you want is a really good operator and a really good marketer, right? You need people who have not only equal value, but opposite value. So they really bring more to the table. And then I think just long-term, you have to have a same sense of like time horizon. Are you looking to build a business with a 9-figure exit? Are you looking to build a lifestyle business? Because oftentimes we're all blue-eyed and bushy-tailed, or whatever you call it, like in the early days, and we don't really think about those things. And then there's a team that I was working with recently, coaching kind of towards the end, and again, it was brothers, and they do have 2 very different visions. One, once he has a family, has kids, just wants to build a lifestyle business where he can work 40 hours a week, make a really good living, and have this like high floor that he'll never have to worry about money again for his family. And the other brother is single, doesn't have kids, and wants the maximum amount of upside, wants to figure out how he can be flying private everywhere he goes. And so these are two different kind of outcomes. And when they first started, they never thought that this would become an issue. And so I think long-term, knowing where you really want this business to take you is incredibly important. So I think me and my brother were aligned in all three of those at a really, really high level.
Very good. I mean, we're going to delve into the crypto and everything, but I love business. So it's like I know, like if you're kind of trying to buy out someone, the best one I've kind of heard is like, I think it's called a Texas auction. So just say we had business together, I bring something to the table, I say, I'm going to buy you out for X. And you either have the choice of buying that or I have to buy you at that price. And I always found that's the fairest one. So I'm just wondering how you actually do it.
So we actually did it. We arranged every single term except for the number. So we knew exactly who would hold on to all of the assets, the liabilities, the IP, everything, right? Which was pretty much whoever was getting the company. And then we had agreed on it would be a 5-year term. It was basically 60 equal installments, and that there would be a payment that took place over those 60 months. And we just need to figure out what was the amount of that payment going to be. And so we agreed ahead of time. We would literally both write it down on a piece of paper. We'd slip it across the table, and whoever had written down the higher amount would be the one who takes over the company. And the amount that they bought it at would be directly between the two numbers. And so you were incentivized that you wanted to write down a number that was high enough that if you got bought out, you knew that you were getting at least that number, but you were definitely getting higher, but low enough that if you had to buy somebody else out, you were going to be paying less than that, but it would be, you know, the higher you went, the bigger the chances that you end up paying. So it was actually really creative. It worked out really well. We hugged each other. He was living in New York at the time. He was at my house though. And I gave him a big hug. I took him to the train station. We both like kind of, you know, said congratulations. And that was it.
I love that. And I've
Yeah.
just seen you on some of the videos, and I see Ink, because I used to subscribe to that for about 10 years, Ink magazine, and I see the kind of plaques and I don't know, are they there now? In yeah, so I had seen them clearer in another one. So what are they about?
So Ink does, they do like an Ink 5000 every year where they take the top 5,000 businesses. I'm not sure if it's US or worldwide, but you submit your business, they look at 3 years of revenues, and they look at basically revenue growth. So it's businesses that have had sustained and significant growth over, you know, 3-year periods of time. I think that we were as high as 1982, which is my birth year. I think that's where we landed on the first time we were on it, and the second time slightly higher, somewhere around 2,500. And so, yeah, we're, you know, one of the top couple thousand fastest growing businesses in the entire US in terms of speed and longevity, not just a single year of growth, but sustained growth over time.
Before we touch on the company, like your own crypto journey.
Yeah, so 2017 is when I got into it. It was actually with my brother. And we started, you know, we kind of, this is when I was able to first download Coinbase, to when they were selling Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin. Those were the only 3 coins that were traded there. So I started to just kind of like buy into those. In fact, I was looking back recently. The first Bitcoin buy I ever had, Bitcoin was right around $4,500. And I bought some Bitcoin there, and then started to trade, and then set up a Binance account and started to trade a bunch of these, you know, shit coins and meme coins. And well, they weren't meme coins at the time, but just kind of trading in based on like whatever, and got my education that way. I put like $10,000 in to begin with. And then I actually took some of my retirement and put that into, put like $25,000, took like a loan against my retirement and put that into crypto because we were so bullish on it. We ran that like what would now be like 35 that I had invested, my original 10 plus the 25. I think I ran that all the way up to about $150,000. I was on top of the moon. That was that Christmas that, you know, my parents were talking about Bitcoin, and then held on too long, traded too many stupid coins, and I think ended up with probably $5,000 total. And so now I had to repay my retirement back. I was out of Bitcoin, but it was, I continued to kind of trade, and then moved into, you know, in 2020, 2019, 2020, moved into the NFT craze, you know, with Top Shots, and then eventually into like the real Solana NFTs and things like that. And so I've always kind of been early. I really look at these things, and, you know, I've talked about the businesses that I've had that have succeeded. I've launched a number of businesses bootstrapped that have not succeeded. And I always consider these things like tuition, that, like, you know, learning about Bitcoin in that time, it was a $25,000 mistake, but I learned a ton then. And I think that $25,000 has really helped me to understand so much more of like fundamentals of tokens and tokenomics and crypto economies, that has really helped me to build what I think is one of the most fundamentally sound token economies, particularly for a Web3 game with Honeyland. And so I think of that as like an education. All the businesses that I failed, I learned things or found new tools, or, you know, there's something that I was able to pull from that. So I always approach these things with, I'm going to I'm going to invest an amount of money into this, that the investment is not to see how much returns I can get. The investment is to see how much education I can get. And if returns come from them, if I accidentally build a business, the e-commerce one with the Trump bobbleheads, we were not trying to make money from that. We were trying to learn. We had done a lot of digital marketing, and we were selling a service to real estate agents and a SaaS. Like, the direct response to e-commerce was entirely different. And so this was a experiment to say, what can we learn about direct response marketing and direct to consumer sales, product sales, that we can then transfer into the SaaS and service businesses that we're already doing at a really high level. We accidentally got successful, but that was not necessarily the intent. Obviously, the profits become kind of the next level that helps, but we were able to also learn things that we could put into the other businesses. So I always think of these things as tuition. My initial kind of crypto journey, while it was a lot of fun and then ultimately was relatively expensive, certainly taught me a lot, and I was willing to kind of lose that as a tuition fee, as opposed to just kind of trying to get gains.
Very good. And like, I see a lot of the videos you're doing, and even the podcast and everything, and it's like you're the face. Were you brought in because you're so, like, your charisma and your ability to speak in public and stuff like that? Because sometimes a lot of people don't have that ability. Is that kind of the skill set that they were kind of bringing you in as well? Because obviously all your business knowledge, but sometimes you need a face for the company.
I think so. So I knew Justin. I didn't know my other two co-founders, Brendan and Apoorv. I met them on November 15th, 2021. That was kind of the first time that we all came together, and it was on Zoom. Justin knew all of us. He was the spoke that connected us all. And I think he just had a really good intuition of the kind of pieces that we would fill in together when I talk about equally and oppositely talented. Justin was somebody that I was in a business forum with through Entrepreneurs Organization back in 2014, 2015. He had a business that was generating he had basically built a mobile app that, or a mobile ad platform that would help drive like millions or hundreds of thousands of installs a month with companies like Zynga and King and Machine Zone. We're spending millions of dollars a month with him to help generate downloads and for those games. So that was a skill that transferred really well into when we said Honeyland. We said, listen, if we can build a really good game, the user acquisition side of things is what we know. If we can basically take the Web 2 playbook for user acquisition and like high app downloads and install growth, we can do something pretty special in the space. And so that was always the thesis, and that was one of the talents that he brought. And I think he was just looking for talents. I was not supposed to be, like, when we first came in, I was actually the smallest piece of the founding team. I had full-time coaching that I was doing. I was looking to kind of more advise on this project and like actually launch it. I got so excited. And I think that, one of my things is when I get really excited about things, I try and kind of, make myself roomy and valuable. And I think I was able to show a high level of value in a really small amount of time in terms of how we're able to organize and move very, very quickly. I think everybody shared their value. I don't want to act like I was disproportionate to Justin or Apoorv or Brendan. We all really had that equal and opposite. And I think the role that we needed most, that I was probably most up for, was kind of the CEO role. And it was funny because I've always been an operator. With my brother was always the CEO. And so for 17 years, I was the COO of everything we did. He was the CEO. Cameron Harold has a podcast called Second in Command, which I just love that idea of like being really proud of being the COO, the one who supports and challenges the vision of the CEO. And I'd always loved that role. But I think along that journey, I learned so much from my brother about what a great CEO does. And I learned a lot, and I'd almost become, this is a American football term, but you kind of have like head coaches, and then you have like the offensive coordinator. And I think oftentimes, when that team wins a Super Bowl, the offensive coordinator goes and gets a head coaching job with another team, because they've learned and grown those skills. And I think this was kind of my moment to move from like, an operator into a CEO. I was ready for it. The company needed it. And I've always loved video. That was part of like coaching. I had this video set up heading into this through coaching. And I was doing coaching in 2020 when COVID hit. I had to move everything virtual with my teams and so like I was well positioned, not only with the equipment, I was comfortable in front of a camera, and I believed very fundamentally in kind of bucking the meta, that when we first got into this, into like Web3, the idea of like being undoxed and the idea of being like this kind of secretive like founder and like very protective and like opaque was kind of this cool little meta. And we were like, nah, we've worked really hard to build a reputation that people can get behind and know who we are. I want people to see my face, know my name. I I want them to know that they can trust who we are. And we believe that communication is an incredibly important part of that. And so we were all fully Docs founders from day one. We were very communicative. We shared our challenges and our excitements, and we've done that the entire time. I think we've got, over the 2-year history of this company, just a little more than 2 years old, we've got about 320 videos or something like that, that have been updates and AMAs and things that we've done to the community. So yeah, that was always a big part of what we wanted to do. And I think I was just kind of, I don't know, it was just, I was the one who got chosen, and I was up for the challenge. So, but yeah, I love to talk.
Well, fantastic. So let's talk. I mean, I've looked at the videos and everything, the Honeyland, and it's about the bees. But I mean, for those that don't know about it, you might kind of tell them the story, what it's about, and also just curious with the way people now realize how important bees are. Did that play into anything in what you were doing?
Yeah, so remember, November 15th was the first time that I met Apoorv or anybody. Apoorv had been working on this for a couple months prior to this. And so he had this vision of Honeyland and what it could be, that it would be a strategy and resource management game. It's funny, I went back recently, kind of just before our 2-year anniversary, and wanted to look at early documents. And we haven't deviated very much. We've added a lot of texture to what we had, from the original vision, but the vision was always there would be land ownership and bee ownership, and bees would go on missions to land, and the land would emit the resources that players would go out and kind of compete for. It was this PvEVP, so players competing against each other to earn assets from the environment. So it was really close. When I heard Honeyland, he already had the name, he had everything. When I heard Honeyland and had heard bees, I didn't think too much of it. I thought it was certainly good. I liked the idea. I also didn't think of it too much in that's it. But now I mean, bees, honey, hexagons have become really, really cool and popular and in right now, which is fun. And so being a part of that kind of bee meta is really fun. But yeah, it's and there's certainly, our longer term goal we talked early on was do we want to do some cause-based efforts to what we're doing? And the answer is always yes. We want to do that long term, but we want it to be authentic. We don't just want to tell people that if you buy our NFTs, we're donating to this cause, and use that as a way to drive our business, that we weren't truly passionate about the cause. And so we fully intend to have some real positive impact for bees, for the world, but we want to do it in a really, really, truly authentic way, not kind of a lazy and marketing-based way. And so I think you'll see that in the future. I think there was a first part of the question that I missed. Maybe you can reset it, or we can continue to move on.
And just, I mean, we know it's about the bees and the land, but I suppose one of the things that I've seen that I thought was good, the graphics are fantastic. You see even the mating, and you see the curtains. And when I saw that, I thought it was very good. But I thought the way the world is at the moment, did you get a kickback on? Was there people kind of complaining about that? They're breeding, but it's you're not seeing anything, but just the way the craziness that we're living in.
Yeah, I think there was conversation. I wouldn't call it kickback, but yeah. So going back to the game, it's a strategy and resource management game. Players come in, they assume the role of beekeeper. They have a colony of bees. We give you some to start, and then the goal is that you want to go and grow and strengthen your colony of bees, and you do that by this idea of keeping your bees busy, right? Get them out on missions. They can go out on both harvesting and hunting missions. Each have kind of a different part of the strategy. Hunting missions, you're bringing back honey pots that contain items. These items can be used to grow and strengthen your colony of bee. They can be used to give you advantages on certain missions over other players. And so those are the item side of things. And if you go on harvesting missions, you're bringing back HXD tokens. These are the tokens that fuel the entire game and the ecosystem. So oftentimes you'll need items and HXD in order to maybe upgrade a bee or do certain things like that. As you upgrade the bee, it becomes stronger. It's going to bring back more assets in quicker time durations. And so it allows you to progress through the game quicker. And so this is kind of at a high level what the game is about. It's a strategy and resource management game. Keep your bees busy, have a lot of fun doing it. But for our whales in the game, there are so many layers to this that you'll keep unlocking pieces of this strategy. So at first it may just be about getting more bees or, upgrading your bees. And then you realize that starting to every bee has a mood, every bee has a like and has a dislike that on the surface don't immediately have an impact, as high of an impact of what's their capacity or what's their agility that will tell you how much of the assets they're going to bring back or how quickly they'll do it or what's their recovery time, right? And then you start to realize that matching moods between like your queen and your bees, or matching likes between bees that are going out on missions starts to give you mission boosts that become probably more significant than even like upgrading your bees. And now you start to trade with other players to say like, hey, my queen is a frustrated mood queen. And so my goal is to get as many frustrated mood bees in my colony as I can. So I'm constantly finding other players, trading with them, leveling up in the right ways. You want to match like the capacities and agilities of those bees so that they're getting the boost for the longest amount of times on the missions. And again, I'm probably losing everybody. That's kind of the idea here, is that at a very, very simple level, keep your bees busy, right? Go into the game, send them out. They're going to bring things back. But at a very, very complex level, in terms of if you really want to master the strategy, there's a lot of layers of strategy and a lot of different ways to really play the game. And so I think it's that's what keeps kind of our casual players enjoying it, and then keeps what I would call our mid-core players really happy as well. I think that's kind of where our range is. We want to bring people in who are casual and then hopefully elevate them to a little bit more of kind of a mid-core player where they're really starting to engage in not just the keep your bees busy side of it, but more the actual strategy of asset ownership and how you're upgrading and organizing your colony, etc.
And is it for all ages, or is there kind of age limit on it?
So because there's a crypto component to it, there's an 18 or older requirement. What I would say is I let my daughter play, right? She's 7 years old and 4 years old. I've got two daughters. So we've really tried to build the content of the game that would be available for my 7-year-old daughter, is kind of what we think about as like, if it's appropriate for her, we can bring it into the game. So little things like the bees have a trait. One of them is there's a bee smoking a cigar. That's about as like PG as we're going to get, that we really want everything to be family friendly. I think the IP is fun, and it's far more, we want to go after like, we've got a partnership with MasterCard that we're going to be launching in January. And one of the things that they need is they need brands that are globally family friendly, right? You can't have guns and fights and tons of like drugs, or like, you just can't have those things in it, violence. And so, yeah, we really try and keep it for like a 7-year-old or up audience, but 18 or older to play, since there is that crypto a part of the, or element of the game.
And I believe it's Solana that you're using, yeah? Solana.
Yeah, what I believe is, if Bitcoin was kind of the first chain that really established themselves in the crypto world, and then Ethereum kind of had some doubts and troubles early on, but with that next bull run, I think fully solidified themselves with their ability to bring smart contracts and utility to the blockchain as that number 2 chain, and those two sit at the top. I think Solana is more well-positioned than anybody when we get into the next bull run to kind of take where Ethereum was, where there's some uncertainty, there's some opportunity, and really establish themselves as the top 3 chains based on what Solana brings, which is just this user experience, this community side of things, the actual, what I would say, like the B2C facing, like consumer facing apps, as opposed to just kind of more business facing apps that Ethereum has really nailed. And so I think you'll start to see when we get out of this next bull run that Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana have solidified themselves as the leaders in blockchain. And then there's a number of L1s and L2s that are doing a lot of really, really cool things as well, but probably thought of more as those second tier, where you're going to see Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. They've been incredible for us. They've given us everything that we need: the infrastructure, the community, the performance, the team, just the network that they build, and what they're doing on the technology side for payments and just shared state networks, and all of this is absolutely incredible. The scalability that exists on Solana. So a ton of things to be bullish about just with the chain that we built on. Was a decision we had to make like week 2, week 3 of building, around this time 2 years ago. And while there was certainly some moments that Solana had, has had some speed bumps with the whole FTX stuff and with some, outages and things like that, I think we're through all that stuff. And I think we're never could, if I had to do all over again, I would 100% choose Solana again, knowing today everything I know now.
Yeah, brilliant. And so I know you're on Android, Play Store, and Apple. Like, what kind of hassles did you have with that? And I mean, obviously, are they taking like the 30% that they normally do with some stuff, or can you navigate that? Because I'm always curious, like, wouldn't you want them to kind of go back to the web? Is it where you can avoid that? And just
Yeah. So we got really, really lucky in that we wanted to build the greatest player experience possible. And because of that, we had to create an on-chain, off-chain architecture that was incredibly novel and that allowed us to basically create as little friction or interference for the player. Because our goal is, if you remember, stepping back on earlier in this interview, we talked about we wanted to basically duplicate the Web 2 playbook for as a bridge into Web 3, which meant that we needed to have a game that felt like a Web 2 game. Now, why do we need a Web 3 game? I think it's important to answer this, that like, if you're like, well, Web 2 playbook, Web 2 players, like, why don't you just build a Web 2 game? Web 3 unlocks a couple of things that just are not possible in Web 2 games. And so I think we really want to take advantage of that. The idea of custodying and trading assets with other players, so creating like a peer-to-peer economy of assets, just doesn't exist in Web 2 games. The idea of real stakes gaming can exist, but becomes much easier when you're dealing with global audiences where you don't have borders and permissions and trust that needs to get involved. And so creating a real stakes gaming infrastructure, and then the idea of just kind of like microcurrencies or microtransactions where cents can start to matter, as opposed to just dollars, where it doesn't make sense to do things for micro transactions inside of a Web 2 game. And so we want to take advantage of all that stuff, but we wanted to build this Web 2 kind of experience. And so we needed to reduce signatures. We needed to make it discoverable in app stores. We needed to make it so that players could come in and set up an account with a Google or an Apple ID. We needed to make it so that they could on-ramp, like get into crypto with a credit card purchase through Apple Pay or Google Pay. We needed to make it so that they could start to trade assets without having to go to like a third-party marketplace, where like NFT marketplace, where they had to like then connect a wallet and sign. And so like we've literally solved every single one of those challenges. And so in solving those for the player experience, we accidentally fell right in line with Google and Apple's policies. And so because what they're purchasing as an in-app purchase is technically an in-game off-chain asset that's represented one-to-one with an on-chain asset. So if they ever want to convert the HXD, that when they come in and they want to purchase 100 HXD as an in-app purchase, they can do that with Google Pay or Apple Pay. We put that right into their account as like an off-chain, basically like HXD or Honey in their game that's spendable in the game. And then if they say, hey, you know what, rather than having this in the game, I'd rather pull this out on chain, they simply request a deposit and we make an off-chain, or we make an on-chain transaction at that point. And so this on-chain, off-chain has really created not only the best player experience, but it's given us the ability to actually fall compliant with app stores. To answer your question about the in-app purchase fees, we do pay the 30% in-app purchase fee. So you can buy cryptocurrency on a decentralized exchange, our HXD, deposit it into the game, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can do that as long as you can also purchase that HXD in the game, which is what we've done as an in-app purchase. So if you purchase in the game, so somebody like my mom, who doesn't know Web3 or wallets or crypto, but she wants to play Honeyland, she's going to use the in-app purchase in the game. It's frictionless. It's super easy. But if she buys $100 worth of HXD, she's actually only getting $70 worth. But then we use mystery crates and some like, gotcha mechanics and rewards so that she's actually getting $70 of HXD plus some in-game items and crates that are going to fill in a lot of that value can actually, with some of the gotcha mechanics, can actually be far more than $100 worth of value that she's getting between the items and the HXD through certain purchases. But on average, she's going to get about 40% of the in-app purchase fees that she's paying. She's going to get about 40% of that back in items, and then she'll get the 70% in tokens. And so it's a way that we've tried to fill it in. Make sure Apple gets paid, Google gets paid. We don't want to do anything in violation or risk that. So we're completely above board with everything that's taking place with them. Make sure we have frictionless and convenient ways for players to completely participate, but also make sure that the 30% isn't completely lost to Apple. And so, yeah, we've tried to be really creative about it. And that's kind of been our app store journey.
Excellent. And when people have like the NFT wallets and they connect to like OpenSea or whatever, do their NFTs, do they appear on that, or is it just kept in? They will appear, yeah.
Yeah, so there's two kind of assets that you have. You have your HXD and you have your NFTs. Both of those need to be, the HXD needs to be deposited into your game account if you want to spend it. So at that point, we actually custody it. So that will take it from your wallet and we'll put it into a wallet that we custody it for you. You can spend them. We move them around on chain as they need, as you spend them in the game. So basically you're spending off chain. We're moving everything on chain in the background. And then if you ever want to withdraw, we move that back on chain into your wallet. The NFTs need to be staked in order to be played in the game. But the staking is a non-custodial staking. And so you actually continue to hold that asset in your wallet. We just put basically like a lock on that. And that lock means that it can't be listed or sold or moved until it's unstaked. And so that means if you want to earn with those assets in the game, those bees that can be going out on missions and doing all those things, it can't at the same time be listed on the marketplace. So you have to make a decision. Do I want to play with my bee, or do I want to go kind of trade or be able to move my bee around? And so that's what, so there is depositing and staking. The token is custodial. The NFTs are non-custodial, so those will never leave your wallet.
Excellent. I'm just curious because I hear a lot of problems with bots and stuff like that. Do you have any issues with bots connecting? Because obviously, if it's a free version and they're trying to make assets, someone have it that they're trying to have 100 bots working from.
Yeah, so this is one of the things that we were so lucky. I always say that we're kind of driving like 30 seconds behind the car accidents on the freeway. And we've been really lucky because we don't get involved in the car accidents. We get to see what caused them. We get to drive around them and then learn from them. And so, I think when we first came into this, when Justin called me, and kind of said, hey, on the 15th, we've got a meeting. I'd love for you to join. He mentioned this idea of Axie Infinity. And so I went and did a bunch of research. And Axie at that time was reaching their peak of like 2 million daily actives. And it was incredible what they had built. But they also had some fatal flaws in kind of their tokenomics that made their success also kind of their downfall. Now, Axie still is doing a lot and has done great things for Web3 gaming. But I think that we were able to learn from them in a lot of things. And so my goal was to build the most sustainable token economy in a Web3 game that could possibly exist. And so we were very, very intentional about how do we allow it to be free to play forever as long as you want, without the fear of that leading to bots, multi-accounts, and extraction in any way that could potentially incentivize and hurt the economy. So how do we allow real human, individual, unique players to have fun in the game without making that open for extraction from bots or incentivizing multi-accounts? And so we've done a lot of really, really intentional things to the game. It's nearly impossible to move assets between accounts unless you've paid for what we call Beamium. Beamium is a one-time $30 upgrade. We convert that $30 into HXD, put it back into player rewards. So it's actually not even a sink or a revenue source for us as the treasury. It's just an anti-bot account. So it says, if you want to set up 100 accounts, you're probably not paying $30 100 times in order to be able to do this. The only way that you can extract tokens that you earn from the game in Honeyland is if you have a Beamium account. So if you want to come in, use a bunch of assets, earn real HXD, and you want to be able to extract, there's a small fee that you would be required to put in, which is that Beamium fee, that upgrade before you could do that. As you're earning items in the game, those items are in-game items, they're off-chain items. But if you're Beamium, you can convert them to on-chain items. So basically, the Beamium is kind of this thing that says, if you want to be able to transfer things between accounts, if you really want to be able to take items and make them sellable, if you want to be able to take HXD that you're earning and move it on-chain, you just need to have Beamium. And so players will not do that for multiple accounts. And we've put a lot of really solid mechanics in that say you can't set up 100 accounts and then find a way to funnel them all into a single account, make that account Beamium, and then extract from a single account. So we've been incredibly intentional. I will say it's one of the big challenges. Kind of this on-chain, off-chain has been one of the challenges that we've had to solve and unlock, which is, built the blueprint for Web3 mobile games to get in app stores, to create a great player experience. It's not like it's easy to, I can show you the blueprint. There's a lot of tech that goes into it behind the scenes to make all that happen that still requires a high level of proficiency, but I can explain to you what we've done there to make gasless transactions and all that stuff. And then the second part of how do you build an economy that is free to play for players and can be really fun and engaging, but also prevents any sort of multi-account incentives or extraction opportunities that could be negative to the economy is incredibly challenging to do, but something that we were committed to from day one. And so I think those two things are probably the biggest secret weapons that we have from like a tech or what I would call infrastructure side of what we built. And then you layer in a really, really incredible art, great graphics, fun gameplay, a lot of layers of strategy. And you have a game that is not only fun to play like any Web2 game, but takes those challenges that Web3 brings that, unlocks all those things, player-to-player economy, microtransactions, real stakes gaming. All of that is a part of the game that just can't really exist in Web2. but done under an architecture and an infrastructure that is sustainable and scalable as well, which is really, really cool. So we're proud of what we built. Some of that stuff isn't sexy to talk about. Like players just want to get in, download the game and play. And, but for anybody who's investing, like, that wants to go buy tokens, that maybe doesn't want to play Honeyland, but wants to say, how do I have a piece of this? I believe these guys feel like if what he's telling me is right, they've probably figured something out that they can be a game that can be one of these runaway games as we start to head into the bull. HXD or NFTs, there's ways that you can participate in the game and share in some of the upside, speculate on what we're building without necessarily playing the game. And so I think that's one of the things that's so cool about Web3 is that there's so many different ways to play the game at this point because of the assets that exist, the games that exist. So yeah, that's a bit more just kind of about some of the challenges that I think.
Just finally, because I see with some of the Web3 games, the assets people can transfer to different games. Is that something that you're looking at, or even have you got other plans for other games, or are you just keeping it all in-house?
Yeah, so the term I think that gets thrown around is interoperability.
I wouldn't have remembered that even if I did know it.
I think there's some real utilities for it, where by the time this comes out, we will have already launched, but a partnership with Star Atlas, where they've created like a recipe in their game. It's another big popular Solana game. If you go through, get the items, craft the recipe, you're going to earn an SFT in their game. That SFT will actually get you benefits in our game, so it will unlock certain things in our game. We're playing with this idea of interoperability. My big thing, like a year ago, I think it was kind of the lazy meta to be like, yeah, and then you'll be able to take our NFTs and put them in different games. And if you build a really good game, you don't necessarily need to move that NFT into it. Like you don't need that as a utility if the main primary utility it has is good enough. And so our goal is to make it good enough. But the idea that we're launching a couple other what we call game mall games. These are more like active gameplay. They're not full economies. They don't emit HXD, but they have utility for HXD in them. The next series of games that we build for that game mall will most likely also find utility for your NFTs. So whether we're doing racing games or battle games or different things like that, the assets that you have in Honeyland will also be able to be used in those games, and the stats and things that they have will have relevance and importance in those as well. So yeah, we're working on interoperability, but really within more the Honeyland ecosystem than what a lot of people think of as like that you can take a Honeyland asset and you can go play that in Star Atlas is not necessarily where we're looking. I mean, we don't want to divert our resources for.
You want to keep them in. You don't want them going. I mean, the only way it works is if you know that you're partnering with people that your game is 10 times better. And once they come to you from them, then that they stay with you. But yeah, I mean, it's
yeah, exactly. And so
you're risking losing a customer basically.
Exactly. So I want to keep my players in Honeyland. I want to do as many things as I can to bring more and more players in. But ultimately, I think focusing our energy and limited resources, or I should say, not limited, but finite resources, trying to focus our finite resources on prioritizing and executing the things that are most important to drive Honeyland forward, not necessarily to figure out how we can leverage other projects and things like that. That's generally my sense, but there will be opportunities, I think, for interoperability in the future as well.
Excellent. Listen, Corey, thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. You might let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, so the hub for everything is just going to be honey.land. If you want to go to our website, you can find all of our socials in the bottom banner there. We're on YouTube. I do videos every single day. We're on Spotify. If you want to go find us on there, most of our updates are published on Spotify. I'll be launching a podcast, I believe, in 2024 as well, a little bit of alpha there. And then we're discoverable in the App Store. So if you want to go start playing Honeyland, go search in Apple or Google Play Store for Honeyland. Download it. You'll be able to come in with a Google or an Apple ID to create your account. You'll be able to use Apple Pay or Google Pay to buy your first set of HXD if and when you're ready to do that. We have a player-to-player marketplace that you can start to actually trade and buy and sell assets in with other players in the economy. We've really unlocked all this stuff. I think you'll find that Web3 can be a lot of fun, whether or not consider yourself a Web3 person or enthusiast or gamer. I assume a lot of people listening to this would probably consider themselves that already, but I think you'll really start to see that we've built the most frictionless way to participate in a Web3 game in a really, really fun and significant way, but done it in a way that feels like just like any other game that you would download from the App Store, any other really good game that you would download from the App Store. So yeah, honey.land is our website. Search us in major app stores if you want to download and start playing.
No, cool. I'll make sure I put the link button, the audio, and the video. Thank you very much, Corey.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, Roy. I appreciate it.
No problem. So that's all for the Crypto Podcast. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, share with your friends. You find everything on thecryptopodcast.org. Until next week, take care. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, and share with your friends. And you'll find all my shows with the QR code or bio.link/podcaster, as well as my podcast coaching. And I'd like to thank my sponsor, DanielPacker.com, helping people with anxiety, stress, and addictions. He's got a 90% success rate, and you only pay if you're successful. Also, if you'd like to go on a podcasting tour, I can help you do that. And if you're interested in sponsorship, you can contact me on my bio.link/podcaster. Until next week, take care.